Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the National Timely Action Hour. This is the show where we talk about everything from Superman and Spider-Man to the Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, and Star Trek. If you're new, then welcome. My name is Aiden. I'm your host today. And today, I am going to be doing a review of the massive DC Comics event, Crisis on Infinite Earths, written by Marv Wolfman and drawn by George Perez. This was published between April of 1985 and March of 1986. This is going to be part one of my review. I'm going to be doing a breakdown of each issue. It's a 12-part maxi series, and at the end, I'll do a retrospective and a recap of the entire series. So, I hope you enjoy this. Let's get. Before I start reviewing issue number one, first I have to give you some context so that you can understand the lead-up to Crisis on Infinite Earths. The genesis of this story goes all the way back to the creation of DC Comics in 1937. At the time, it was called National Allied Publications. Now, National Allied Publications pioneered the superhero genre in comic books with the publication of Action Comics number 1 back in April of 1938, and that debuted Superman. And Superman, obviously, is the most recognizable, one of the most recognizable characters in all of fiction, and he was the first original superhero. And as you can see, I did get a haircut from the last video, and I'm feeling good. I'm doing well. I hope you are all doing well. So let's continue this. So the creation of Superman started the golden age of comic books, which lasted from 1938 until 1954. And if you want a little more context on the history of comic books, the first 3 episodes of my podcast, the National Timely Action Hour podcast, goes into it. And so within that time, we saw characters like Batman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, The Flash, Hawkman, the Justice Society of America, all come about in DC Comics. And over at Marvel Comics, we had characters like Captain America, the Human Torch, Namor the Submariner, Miss America, etc., etc. And then in 1956, 1956, I believe, Barry Allen, the second Flash, was created in Showcase Comics. I'm sorry, I got some notes here. Showcase number 4. And that started the Silver Age of comic books. And that lasted from 1956 until 1969. And 1969 is when Dick Grayson Robin went to college, and Batman was alone again for the first time since 1940. And then in 1970, the Bronze Age of comics started with Green Lantern and Green Arrow traveling across America in a story called Hard Traveling Heroes, which is a pretty good story. And those are the 3 ages of comic books, because after Crisis ended, that was the Iron Age of comics from 1986 to 2010. And then we are currently in the modern age of comics. At the time of recording, it is March 2022. So in September 2011, that's when the modern age began. Alright, so in the 60s, DC published this story called The Flash of Two Worlds. And that was done by Gardner Fox and Carmine Infantino. And Gardner Fox had created the original Flash, Jay Garrick, back in 1940. And then he reinvented the Flash in the 50s when he created Barry Allen. So Gardner Fox was the guy for the Flash back in the Golden and Silver Ages. And he wrote this story to bring back Jay and it was revealed that the characters from the golden age of comics, so Alan Scott, Green Lantern, Jay Garrick, Flash, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, lived on Earth 2. Now, Earth 1 was where Barry Allen and the second Green Lantern, Hal Jordan, and their own Superman, Batman, Robin, and Wonder Woman lived. And so that was Earth 1, Earth 2, Earth 1, or Earth 1, Earth 2, however you want to set it up. But that's how the multiverse was created. And then later Marvel Comics started publishing their own multiverse, and yada yada yada. But throughout the 60s we saw other Earths, like Earth 3, where Superman is evil and Lex Luthor is the good guy, and Earth 24 over there. It was revealed that there are infinite Earths in the DC Comics multiverse, and each one is different yet similar in its own way. So that's how the multiverse was created. And by the mid-1980s, DC was trying to get new readers to jump on to their books, but a lot of people were finding it very difficult because, one story might be over there and the other story might be over there. But Earth 1 was the main story from 1956 to that point. That was where most of the stories took place. But, it really depended on who was writing it and what the story was. But, apparently, Julius Schwartz, the main editor-in-chief of DC, was getting letters, and he was saying, and these letters were saying, Mr. Schwartz, could you please explain this? I'm having a difficult time understanding the multiverse and all that. And he was like, how many Earths are there? He's like, there's like a bajillion, trillion, million, infinite Earths. And, the president of DC at the time was a woman named Jeanette Kahn, and she was trying to, she grew up reading comic books in the 40s and 50s, and so, and she became president in the 70s, and so she was, trying to make it easier for people, and so she and Julie, Julius Schwartz's nickname was Julie, according to Dennis O'Neil, who was a writer on Batman in the 70s. But yeah, she and Julie were trying to make things work and trying to get new readers on because, Marvel Comics was starting to get, more sales than them. And, I love both DC and Marvel, so, I'll buy both their books, like Spider-Man, Batman, I'll buy that. But, anyway, so things were getting confusing at DC, and they decided, you know what, we have to make a story to make the universe make sense. So they brought on Marv Wolfman, who was a renowned writer, who still is a great writer. He's still working today, and they brought him on. He and George Perez had worked on the Teen Titans book together from the early 80s, and so they're like, George, Marv, we need you guys. We need you to do this story. And they're like, we're in. And so that is how the genesis of this story started. Now, let's go into actually reviewing issue number 1. So Crisis on Infinite Earths, issue number 1 was published in April of 1985, and they had been building up to this for a while, actually. They had announced the story back in 1981, and they had been plotting it and, choosing which writer and artist would work on it and getting the plan going. And then finally, 1985, it hit the shelves. So, I have a more modern reprinting of it. It's in pretty good format, actually. They digitally enhanced the coloring, and it's a really good collection. This is the only one I have of it, so I can't really compare anything to it, but I think that this is a good copy. So, getting into the story, we see this character named Pariah, who was invented for the story, and Pariah is watching helplessly as this world is being destroyed. And it's... So, in the 1960s, Jack Kirby was, you know, the guy at Marvel Comics, and he invented this little technique where it like looks like bubbles and there's like energy, so they call it the Kirby energy drawings. So we see a lot of Kirby energy drawings here. Oh, and this chapter is called The Summoning, just so you know. But yeah, we see some crazy energy tearing apart one of the Earths, and then it moves on to Earth 3. And Earth 3 is where the crime syndicate of America lives. So that has Ultraman, who's the counterpart for Superman, who's evil, and his, you know, crime syndicate is evil. Justice League, so we got Ultraman, Owlman, Johnny Quick, Power Ring, Superwoman, and you know, they're the members of the crime syndicate, and the only hero on Earth 3 is Alexander Luthor. So this is the one Earth where Lex is the good guy and Superman's the bad guy. But here we see Earth 3 being torn apart. Owlman is lamenting to Johnny Quick how, you know, God gave them these powers, but they can't use them to save themselves, and Ultraman and Power Ring are talking about the irony of how they subjugated this world, and now in their final moments they're trying to save it. And Luthor and his wife Lois Lane on this Earth, or Lois Luthor, Lane is her maiden name, but Lex and Lois have a son named Alexander Luthor Jr., and you know, Lex realizes, okay, I can't do anything to save the world, but I can save my son. So he and Lois put Alex on this ship, and, you know, it's like Superman. And so they send him out into space, and he knows about other Earths, so he sends him to Earth 1, our Earth. So, and then Earth 3 is destroyed, so we see the death of the crime syndicate and Lex and Lois of that Earth. But their son survives. He makes it to Earth 1. Then we see these characters called the Monitor and Harbinger, also created for this story. So the Monitor operates this satellite, and he sees the multiverse. Like, he tries to, you know, observe, and he wants to save the multiverse. And Harbinger is his adopted daughter. Her name is Lila. He found her when she was very young, and she was starving, I guess, and he rescued her. So he sends her out to find heroes across the multiverse and villains to help save it. So Harbinger can divide herself into various different, so she can make multiples of herself. So he sends her out to find people to help save the multiverse. So she goes to Gorilla City on Earth 1, where she asks King Solivar for help, and the Flash is friends with King Solivar, and there's this rogue guy from Gorilla City called Gorilla Grodd. He's one of the Flash's arch nemesis, and so Flash is the only human who's been to Gorilla City. But yeah, she gets Solivar. She goes to the 30th century and goes to get Dawnstar, who's a member of the Legion of Superheroes, and the Legion of Superheroes were created in the 60s as these teenage superhero team from 1,000 years in the future, and they worship Superman. And yeah, she gets her, and she goes to Earth 2 back in time, because we see Earth 2 in the present, but she goes back to the 1940s on Earth 2 and gets Firebrand. And Firebrand is this woman who shoots fire out of her hands, and she's pretty cool looking, and she's got a cool power. And then she goes to the present on Earth 2 and gets Superman and Psycho Pirate, who's a villain. So she gets the original Superman, but older now, and she gets that villain. And then she goes to Earth 1, and she gets Green Lantern, John Stewart, Blue Beetle, Firestorm, Killer Frost, and a few other people. Geoforce, who's a member of the Outsiders, which is a team that Batman made as like a sort of clandestine Justice League. And some wizard guy from Atlantis back in time. I don't know who this is. But yeah, and here is all of the characters assembled. It's on the monitor's satellite. It's very, very cool. George Perez is an amazing artist. I've talked about this in the past. I love his work. And Marv Wolfman is such a talented writer. He has a lot of gravitas to the story. He pays attention to continuity, which is important in this sense. And he just crafts an interesting story with a lot of stakes and a lot of intrigue, and it's very good. But oh yeah, there's also Obsidian from Earth 2, who has these shadow powers. Trying to remember who else. Oh yeah, Simon, who's the psychic villain. Sort of like Simon Says is his thing. Oh yeah, Dr. Polaris, who's a Green Lantern villain. And here we see the monitor for the first time. And then here's the cover for issue 2. So, basically, Harbinger collects these characters, and we see the destruction of a few different Earths. One of which we have seen before. Also, an interesting thing, in the opening, when Pariah is watching that other Earth being destroyed, he tries to save a little boy, but he can't, and so he cries. He says to Ultraman he can only watch and cry because he can't do anything to save anyone. And it's very tragic and very deep. So, I really enjoyed issue number 1. And next week I will be doing issue number 2. And then the following week issue number 3, etc., until we get to the end at issue number 12. And as I said, after issue number 12, I will do a retrospective and recap of the story. But that is my review of Crisis on Infinite Earths issue number 1. I hope you enjoyed this. And sorry that this is going to be a little bit of a longer video. I'm trying to give you a lot of context so you can understand it, but overall I enjoyed it. I hope you did. Leave a comment telling me what you think about this, and also any suggestions or criticisms. And I will leave a link to all of my social media in the description of this video, along with the link to my Patreon page. And I would like to thank my patrons who support me. You can go and pay as little as $3 a month, or you can have your own custom amount that you can give me just one time. Anything is appreciated, and you get a plethora of benefits. You get early access to videos and episodes of my podcast. You can send me a message. You can vote on polls. You can get access to my original writing projects. You can get a t-shirt with my channel's logo on it, or a coffee mug, or a long sleeve shirt, whichever you so desire. and I'll leave a link to all of my social media. And I just want to thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, please hit the thumbs up button. If you did not like it, hit the thumbs down button. And if you are new and want to see more videos like this, please subscribe and hit the bell notification so that you can be notified every time I post a new video. And I hope you have a wonderful day,